Today, the opportunity to learn Vietnamese for foreigners is becoming more open when they have a wide range of options. One practical and effective way to learn Vietnamese is participating in Vietnamese clubs. At these clubs, they will directly talk to native speakers, correct the pronunciation, and common structure for daily communication. More importantly, it's their chance to discover new Vietnamese speaking environment and learn more about Vietnamese people and culture. Valentin Constantinescu, a Romanian man who has been living in Vietnam for a long time. He is well known in the foreign community in Vietnam with the ability of speaking Vietnamese fluently and deep understanding of Vietnamese culture. Apart from his work, Valentin also founded Let's Speak Vietnamese, aiming to introduce and teaching Vietnamese for foreigners in Hanoi. Let's find out more about Valentin's passion for Vietnamese as well as the activities of the club Let's Speak Vietnamese in our program today. Hello and welcome to Sharing Vietnam on VTC10 Netviet. I'm Nhat. There's a lot of people who say that Vietnamese is such a tough language to learn, especially for the foreigners. But actually, there's a lot of foreigners can even do it and can speak Vietnamese fluently. So Mr. Valentin Constantinescu, a Romanian man who is currently living and working in Vietnam, can do it. And he even transferred his passion for other foreigners. So in our program today, we have talked to Mr. Valentin Constantinescu and find out more about his experiences of learning Vietnamese. Thank you, Mr. Valentin, for joining our program today. So first of all, how long have you been living in Vietnam and why did you decide to travel to Vietnam to work?
Well, as Vietnamese would say, hơn chục năm, like more than 10 years. Like in October this year, there will be 11 years. I came here in 2004 with a scholarship in diplomacy. So I had my first year at Bách Khoa for 1 year studying only Vietnamese. And then since 2005 and 2009 at Học viện Ngoại giao Việt Nam. Back then was called Học viện Ngoại giao Quốc tế, and now it changed to the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam.
Oh, I can see that you can speak Vietnamese very fluently. So, how long have you been learning this language?
Well, learning the language for 16 months. And I was with in Lapka with the Cambodians and Laotians and some Russians in the same group, while studying the common subjects with all the other Vietnamese groups, but also in particular studying the Vietnamese language for another 9 more months, the first scholar year. Now there are some foreigners speaking Vietnamese, and I'm trying to help the community with this. But back then, there were very rare foreigners able to speak Vietnamese, so for them it was something very exceptional, to actually be able to talk to me not in English but in Vietnamese.
Why do you have interest in this language? Because Vietnamese is kind of a tough language to learn. Did you face a lot of difficulties in the beginning of learning this language?
My uncle used to be the vice ambassador of Romania in China, and then the ambassador of Romania in Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. And in 2004, he retired in spring. And then I was finishing my high school. And he told me like, hey, what university are you going to go to? I'm like, I'm still thinking, I don't know. And he said, go to Vietnam because there is a scholarship accord between the two countries. And I was like, why not? I mean, studying diplomacy like my uncle and learning more about the culture and being able to speak an Asian language in an easy way because it's still ABCD, not the Chinese ones or Laotian ones or Cambodian ones, right? So I decided to come here. Grammar is very easy. Like for the verb grammar, like there's no conjugations, only 4 tenses, da, se, dang. Okay, and it's super easy, but pronunciation, yes, is difficult. There are some sounds that I do not have them in my languages that I speak already.
Oh, I also know that you found a Vietnamese club on your own. So, can you share more about this club, which teaches Vietnamese for foreigners and expats living in Vietnam?
I got a bit of sick and tired of my friends or everyone that I knew saying that Vietnamese is so difficult. Oh, Vali, how can you be able to speak it and all this stuff, and being so afraid of learning it, because some of them actually try to take classes. And usually the way Vietnamese people teach Vietnamese is concentrating at the beginning a lot on the pronunciation only. And after a month, you learn only the alphabet and the letters and the tones, but you're not able to actually say anything in the Vietnamese language. So of course, you lose confidence. And I try to change that. So here, being near my house, I can manage this. We open a cafe downstairs. And here we could divide this into 2 classrooms. And we developed our own methodology by modern standards and our own teaching materials. And we want to make a difference, and till now we are making a difference.
This is an advanced class of Let's Speak Vietnamese Club of Valentine. Today, the members reviewed the Vietnamese idiom. For Vietnamese people, these familiar idioms are used every day, but they are confusing to the foreigners in distinguishing words and meanings. The number of students in one class is only from 3 to 5 people to ensure the quality of learning and provide opportunities for them to interact more with the Vietnamese teachers.
I think this class is really useful for all levels of Vietnamese learners because before I started learning here, I was learning on my own with a friend. And it was good, but I didn't get to use the language as much as I do here. When I started coming here, I was forced to use the language as much as possible in the class, and that really helped me a lot and brought my level on.
Among the members of the club, Minh Cường, a Vietnamese-born British, has always been an active member. With a desire to learn Vietnamese and find out more about the culture and history of Vietnam, he came to the club to involve in a friendly and effective Vietnamese speaking environment.
I think you also learn not just the practical things in life, but you also learn the cultural and also the historical aspects of that language as well, and the people. That's why, for me, learning Vietnamese is incredibly important. And also with the added motivation that my parents speak Vietnamese as well.
Besides the needs to learn about the culture and language, foreigners also learn Vietnamese to serve their needs of working in Vietnam. Learning Vietnamese will help them to have many advantages at work and in daily communication.
I think it's a really hard language. That's probably my initial impression of the language. It's very, very difficult, but part of my employment here involved some language training at the beginning. And so I started learning through that. And having picked up a little bit of Vietnamese through that process, I decided that it was an important skill to have when you're learning in another country, to be able to speak at least some of the local language. And so I decided that with at least a couple more years here in Vietnam, I should be applying myself more to learning Vietnamese, to be able to speak to people, to be able to make the most of my time here, understand as much as I can about Vietnam, about the people, about its history, about its culture.
In addition to the advanced classes, the club also regularly organizes classes for beginners. The academic topic is quite diverse, from the names in Vietnamese of the countries around the world to the names of the dishes and Vietnamese beautiful landscapes. For the beginners, despite the difficulties in the beginning, they will discover the value and beauty of that language when they really love and have passion for it.
At the beginning, I felt it was okay, but everyone always told me có nhiều nghĩa. I thought, I don't think so. But now, the more I learn, the more I understand, and the more difficult it becomes. So, yeah, I think it's pretty difficult now. Tôi yêu tiếng Việt.
So what do you think about the need of studying Vietnamese of the foreigners living in Vietnam today?
Most of our students are English teachers, obviously. And they do not necessarily need Vietnamese at work because they have their TAs, teaching assistants, and people at an English center know English. But many times when they're trying to explain something more complicated about their contract, about their facilities, about whatever, English becomes a barrier because many times they cannot make themselves understood. So learning the Vietnamese language is not only about being able to speak it, but being able to understand the way of the Vietnamese people think. and the other way around. So then if you understand that, you get advantages. And besides that, even if you're not an English teacher, still at your workplace, you need to be able to speak. And if you're able to speak in Vietnamese, it's much better. And on the streets, when people do not speak English, in shops, buying stuff, and plus also with a common phrase in Vietnam that if you're a foreigner, you're rich. So, you get ripped off and you have to pay more when you're buying things.
Yeah.
Well, if you say what you want in Vietnamese, people will not trying to ask more money from you.
Compared to other languages around the world, what are the differences of Vietnamese that you may see?
Let's compare with English, yeah? English has more tenses for verbs. You get a past perfect, continuous and simple, present perfect, continuous and simple, past continuous, past simple, present, future simple, future perfect, clauses, conditionals. In Vietnamese, this one is very easy. You have only 4 tenses, right? And no conjugations. And you can always use the present simple, but be understood because you refer to a certain expression in time. So that's the easy part. The difference in pronunciation is, so these mistakes, like when I teach English for Vietnamese people, they go like, hey, how are you today? And I'm like, no, it's a question. You have to say, how are you today? And then the foreign students learning Vietnamese, they go like, de la cai gì? No, de la cai gì, because it's the tone down. So these differences are sometimes humorous and funny. Idioms a lot. Vietnamese language uses a lot of idioms and sayings, proverbs.
Well, so as the person who has studied Vietnamese before, what kind of steps do you suggest the beginners to learn Vietnamese?
You have to not be scared of the language. It's an Asian language, but it's not so difficult as Chinese or Japanese okay? It's pretty easy to understand for us, right? Okay, for the white face, for foreigners. Second of all, again, you have to drop the idea that you got to have the perfect pronunciation from the very beginning, otherwise people don't understand you. It's true that if you change a tone of a verb from sak to hoi, or huen to nga, then the meaning of the word is different. But when you use it in a certain context, Vietnamese people will still understand you. Second of all, be a monkey. Okay, like at the beginning, I couldn't say home without saying home, and I had to do that. Okay, so some sounds you have to move your mouth in a different way, again at the beginning, and then you can do it. And about the vocab, as soon as you know some words, then it's pretty easy to develop. And the third thing is that Vietnamese people are always eager to speak with you in Vietnamese. They're very helpful about that. So you have all the advantages in the world to learn the Vietnamese language in Vietnam. Everyone wants you to speak Vietnamese. You make them proud.
Last but not least, can you give a message to the beginners who are currently have an urge to learn Vietnamese in Vietnamese?
Lợi ích chính khi học tiếng Việt là tất cả. The main advantage of knowing the Vietnamese language is everything.
Thank you, Mr. Valentin, for joining our program today. And that is also the end of our program Sharing Vietnam. For comments and feedbacks, please send it to sharingvietnam@netviet.net. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.